The world of roguelikes is vast and varying, and it is my job to review it. Hello everyone, I am the Roguelike Reviewer, and today I will be reviewing Risk of Rain 2, a third-person action roguelike where you collect items, shoot monsters, and race against the clock before the enemies overpower you. I have been playing this game for a few years now and has remained one of the best roguelikes I have played. But what makes it such a good experience? The cast of characters? Movement mechanics? The lore? Well, let's dive in and find out. Starting off with the most important part of any roguelike, the gameplay. Well, it starts off pretty simple. You can walk, run, jump, shoot. This is some real basic stuff here. You can also defeat monsters to give you cash for items and XP to level up, with the sole goal of each zone being to reach the teleporter, fight the boss, and progress to the next stage, while also trying to go as fast as possible, as monsters will level up as time progresses, making going out of your way for items a risk you have to decide whether or not is worth the time. This game really does put a good job putting you on the clock here. You have to play fast, not because you're rewarded for aggression like in Hades, Dead Cells, or Doom, where being aggressive typically gives you a reward like a speed buff or HP, but because enemies will scale much faster than you. So if you sit around twiddling your thumbs, you will get ran over. This makes speed a crucial stat to focus on. This is similar to other roguelikes, but for different reasons. It just brings a different feeling to the action, as it's more of a dodge and weave, taking shots when possible, trying to get to the teleporter, instead of just rampaging through your enemies. But what makes surviving all of this possible? Well, it's the items. All of them here ready to provide you with the boost you need to beat your foes, either passively or by needing to be activated for a typically stronger effect. And with over 200 of these items, this game is packed with interesting interactions. And as such, there are much too many items to go over here. But they do range from simple debuff and stat increases, or to more complex stuff like 4 debuffs on a target gives you 50% more damage, or critical hits will cause bleeding. And the large variety of activatable items, yeah, we'd just be here all day. Maybe I can make a tier list someday. Anyway, even though I said there are much too many items to talk about here, I would like to discuss the two most interesting types, Lunar and Void. They're the most interesting as they have downsides associated with them. The Lunar items do this in a really interesting way. They make one thing really strong for just one item, but you do have to give up something for that boost. Unless you're one of those Lunar items. But we'll get there. Let's say you want to deal double damage. Great, we have you covered with shaped glass. But you better be willing to have your HP for it. You want to set fire to all nearby creatures? Absolutely. Here, have the Hellfire Tincture. Oh, don't forget, you are a creature. Have fun! It honestly feels like you're asking a genie for an item, where yeah, he'll give you what you want, but you better be ready for how he throws it in your face afterwards. Unless your name happens to be Gesture of the Drowned. The item halves your active item cooldown, but forces you to activate it as soon as possible. And I'll be honest with you, this has been bad for me exactly once in my hundreds of hours. Every other time I've simply thanked the item for removing the need to press a button. Void items on the other hand have a more nuanced downside, as they transform an item into a void counterpart, typically reversing their function. I think this is really cool, as normally Ukulele is an AoE item, but you can turn it into single target damage. Or in the case of the healing item Bungus, you'll typically need to stand still for it to heal you. In Wungus's case, literally only one character would not prefer to have it. But for the others, it's a genuine decision, because you lose access to the non-void counterpart altogether. I think these items have a really fun dynamic and add a lot to the game. Enough about the items though, let's talk about the characters. There are 17 characters in the roster, so you have quite the selection here, and I firmly believe there's a character for everyone. But you will likely have to unlock them, as you only start with 2. Unless you have the DLCs, which give you 1 additional starter character. As for the starting characters in the base game, we got Commando and Huntress. Commando is meant to be a jack-of-all-trades character, and as such, I find him pretty boring. But he isn't terrible. He can exceed with plenty of builds, but he's never the best for any of these builds. Huntress, on the other hand, is a more agile character, meant to weave in and out of combat, and is one of the few characters that can attack while sprinting, which is massive in this game. Now for the mini unlockable characters. Since there are way too many to go over, I will quickly explain them in a few words, or with memes. We got Space Cowboy, the better Jack of all trades. Engineer, TF2. Speed of Sound Sonic, give me the plant. Punch first and ask questions later. Goofy Poison Lizard.
Why do it yourself when robots do it better?
Bitches Love Cannons. Missed Anger Management Class. Too Harmonious to Die. Robo Gordon Ramsay. And when you unlock the final boss as a playable character. And after all of that, I would like to go more in depth with my personal favorites. Starting off with Engineer, who is one of the best examples of some items are better on some characters. He solves his problems like Engineer from TF2, with more gun, building sentries that also benefit from all the random crap you've collected. He's also a certified bungus enthusiast, as his turrets will do the standing for him. As such, you may have noticed you're more incentivized to grab items which benefit those turrets as opposed to yourself. This makes him have a very unique playstyle, but he can still definitely defend himself. But without any natural movement abilities as a way to balance out his extra firepower, you do really want to be near a turret at all times. Then we have Acrid, a melee range hybrid character with a strong poison effect. His poison is a very strong DOT, but it can't kill anything on its own, always leaving enemies with 1 HP remaining, so you have to finish them yourself. He just feels so fun to play to me. You start off by applying poison to your enemies at a distance, then leap in to finish off your weakened foes. And this is very different from other characters who prefer to either stay distant or close up. Now for my favorite character, Artificer, a high mobility burst damage specialist. Artificer likes to fly around, avoiding damage, waiting for opportunities to strike with big bursts of damage, and she is really good at debuffs, having burn, freeze, and stun in her base kit. This makes her very good with Death Mark, as you just need one more debuff to get that ball rolling. To me, she encapsulates what I like about this game. Flying around your enemies, dealing lots of damage, and then just dipping. And she doesn't even need sustained damage, since igniting or bleeding enemies can give that last bit of damage to finish your opponents. Also, the dinging of the debuff also releases massive amounts of dopamine for me, so you gotta love that part. And while this is all well and good, true gamers like to grab 10 backup mags and roleplay an AC-130. And while all these characters are fun by themselves, this game also happens to support multiplayer, which breaks things wide open. Playing a really squishy character that would like to have less enemies targeting them? Bring an engineer along. He will naturally draw more fire to him and his turrets. Or bring a melee-based character, which will always be in those enemies' faces. Even just having burst and sustained damage characters are good together, as the bursts will leave enemies low on HP, and your friend can finish them off with his rapid fire but lower damage shots. The synergies are almost limitless, even without builds in mind. And plenty of the items affect you, allies, and your drones, so they aren't just multiplayer-minded items. I just love how much a simple addition of one more player can make. It really bolsters the strategies you can create, or even allow for entirely new ones to exist. Multiplayer is extremely underused in roguelikes, and I hope to see more have this option as a feature. So the gameplay is pretty solid, but what about the things around it? I personally really enjoy the sci-fi aesthetic of the characters, and the alien world is gorgeous, and holy cow is the music fantastic. It ranges from very soothing and mellow while exploring an area, to dramatic and bombastic when fighting the boss. And the lore for the world is also very interesting, but it can be difficult to uncover as you have to put the pieces together using item and monster descriptions. Or you can just watch a lore video, which I have personally done myself, so no judgment there. Overall, I greatly enjoy the world and the feel it's going for. And one of the coolest things about the game is the final boss, Mithrix, who happens to have the coolest final phase of any roguelike I have ever played. The final phase, he steals your items and uses your own build against you, which blew me away the first time I saw it. I was so underprepared, and it is something you have to actively plan around. The game also has 2 DLCs, and I personally like both of them, but understand why the community thinks the second one kinda sucks. The first DLC was the perfect addition all around. The levels, items, and enemies added were all fantastic, while the second felt a little undercooked. So much so, it's getting an entire overhaul. The items in the second DLC were just very specific or bland, and the new final boss and elite varieties are just plain annoying to face, as well as introducing so many game-breaking bugs. So far, we've gotten the item reworks and bug fixes, which have been very refreshing. I enjoyed that DLC anyway, but I understand why others disliked it, and I am glad they are striving to improve it. Now, if we stopped here, the game would already be one of the greats, but somehow they have even more to offer to give more accessibility to players. While I really enjoy the RNG of roguelikes, my friend, however, doesn't, and luckily for him, artifacts can solve this. There are a bunch of artifacts you can unlock to add modifiers and change how the game is played entirely. They can add more challenge if desired by making enemies summon wisps on death, or by enabling friendly fire, or by enabling lethal fall damage. But they can also make the game easier by allowing you to choose your items, or allowing you to keep an item from a previous run. Some of them just change gameplay, like doubling monsters but having their HP, or having enemies drop items instead of chests. These allow for more than one way to play, and can help with extremely specific or difficult unlocks for characters and items. When I play with my friend, we typically enable the artifacts of Command, Swarm, and Sacrifice. This allows us to grind for the perfect build on the first map. And while this may be boring for some, and I understand that, we just enjoy having something we can mindlessly do while chatting, and it's satisfying to have an OP build that deletes enemies that just dare to look at you. But most importantly, this adds an alternate way to play, which is vastly different from the norm. This just shows how diverse this game is with ways to enjoy it, which is a huge upside you won't find in most roguelikes. Overall, I just love this game. This roguelike is the one that solidified the genre as my favorite, and has given me countless of hours of enjoyment, both on PC and console. As such, I give this game a 9.5 out of 10. I look forward to all future DLCs and anything else set in this game's universe. And with that, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video and have any recommendations, let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, if you could like the video and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And I'll see all you fellow roguelikers in the next review. See ya!